Sure, everybody's on. It's Jim Sherlin on, or
See, no,
okay, we'll keep your eye out on him.
I heard Jim Sherlin is quitting the transcontinental commute. Stay here permanently.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I know he's just returned from Alaska.
If he's
Tired today, but yeah. Anyhow. Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board, June 18th, 2024. Can we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please? Motion's made by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Bossy to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Bossy, Mr. Brace.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Approval of draft minutes of June 4th, or are there any revisions? They have not been sent out. That's fine. All right.
Meetings.
Anything from Marine Department to announce?
No, she was not present.
Natural Resources, Tara Riley, please.
We are busy. We have our first larval release tomorrow at 5:30 a.m. In Nantucket Harbor, we have around 25 million bay scallops ready to go in the water. We were trying to, the full moon's on Friday, so we're trying to get as close to the full moon as possible, but they're ready to go. So we release them on an incoming tide so that they're not flushed out on an outgoing tide, because they are still swimming for the most part at that stage in their life. We spawn again on Friday, so our tanks will hopefully be full again. We're just really trying to, get these spawns done early. If this next spawn does really well, since Nantucket Harbor is pretty seeded from last year, we'll move over to the west end and start seeding Nantucket Harbor. So we've been working on that. We've had some equipment issues this week, so I have not been in the office working on the edits for the regulations. But I'm hoping to get there towards the end of this week. And we have, we did our eelgrass collection with the land council. So we spent a day diving. They got, between the two groups, got 20,000 shoots of eelgrass. That equates to about 100,000 seeds. And we have 100,000 seeds for our purposes. We're testing out 2 new systems for germinating eelgrass seeds, and then the land council is using the remaining seeds for their restoration projects. And they have one on Hussey Shoal. They had, last year they had one in Fifth Bend, and they were still undecided if that was going to be continued or if they were going to find a new site for that. So we've been busy working on that, putting out spat lines. The first spat lines came in yesterday, that had been out in the harbor since beginning of May. They were completely empty, which is expected, but we like to monitor both ends of the spectrum when it comes to spawning and recruitment. So yeah, we're anxiously awaiting to see when the first natural spawns occur. We're continuing with our water quality. We monitor the HABs every week and report out on Fridays where the harmful algae blooms are. We're running them through our flow cam at the hatchery, which is really efficient. It kind of will identify the species immediately in the abundance. So before, we were having to look through the microscope and count stuff and visually compare to pictures. Now this just kind of sets it up for you. So it makes it a lot more streamlined, and we can increase our monitoring ability. And I think that's it for now.
Questions or comments from the Natural Resources Department from the board?
I said
Peter.
that, got to get a dog. Dog loves this one. So for people that are paying attention, you guys do an awesome job posting the halves, making it happen. But any pond has the potential now to have a halves, but if it hasn't been, haven't identified it yet, then technically it doesn't, but it probably does at some point. I just think you should have signage. Because I was recently at Clark Cove and there was a sign, but the sign was into the sand.
Yeah,
And I just think you should have signs that say, alert people to halves and say, this is the potential, you know, this pond has been closed before, but just so people know. Anyway.
Spell out HAB for all of us.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think there are signs. I think there are signs at most of the ponds because we're working with other groups to help spread out the monitoring. There should be signs there that are yellow this time of year that says it's a possibility that there's a harmful algae bloom, so exercise caution with your pets and swimming. If it is 100% detected on Friday, they're all switched to red, saying, you know, caution. And then I think during the off season, there's a green sign that says chances are low for a harmful algae bloom. So there are probably a few bodies of water that aren't monitored. But I will say, like, you know, like these blooms have been happening for a long time. And the fact that we're just now like getting a handle on everything and noticing them, you know, I'm pretty sure dogs have been swimming and drinking
Yeah.
water in all the ponds for a long time. You know, you just have more information to take home with yourself and decide how you want your pet to be.
Is that like a temperature trigger at this point that causes it, or is it?
It's temperature and nutrients of the groundwater.
Didn't you say that because we haven't had the cold enough winters to freeze the ponds? That, like, most of the ponds are pretty shallow, so, like, for instance, Hummock Pond would freeze and you'd see the ice boats and, so the freezing temperatures, does that it kills the algae or keeps it from really going nuts?
I mean, I think it depends on what it is. Like, I know that dormancy is like kind of important to like kind of keep levels at an acceptable rate. And if you know, the temperature doesn't drop, it never really quite reaches that. So yeah, I think some years are going to be worse than others. A lot of these ponds that we're monitoring are shallow. There's a lot of vegetation. There's no mixing or aeration or anything like that. So they're just like stagnant. So they're going to have blooms in them.
Thank you for bringing that up, Peter, as there are new batches of dogs being adopted here weekly, it seems, so. Anybody else? From the public, John Logan?
Yes, up to Tara, if I may. A couple of things. One, we can go back to the last meeting when the state was just here doing their water quality testing. Do we have the results of that? Or is that available on the state website where we can check it out?
I did ask JC for them. This was the first year that I have been asking JC for them. So I just have one from the end of May. I haven't gotten the most recent one, but I can ask him for it. And if it's not on our town website, I will make sure that we get it on there so that you can just click on it, like the bathing beach reports.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
And the second question, if I may, your West End set, do you have a time frame for scallops? Do you have a time frame for that? And how many do you think you're going to release out there?
I mean, probably as many as possible. We try to like spread the love around evenly between the two harbors, but they're two very different harbors, and Mattakit tends to be a little bit cooler this time of year than Nantucket Harbor, so we try to do that one later, like in July. But I've heard a lot of good feedback from people diving right now, saying that the seed is still looking healthy and plentiful in a lot of places in Nantucket Harbor. So I'm feeling pretty good going into the season for Nantucket Harbor. So we didn't really find a lot in Mattakit Harbor last year, but we also don't do surveys there, but we are going to start in the fall. So I'm excited to, you know, do as much as possible there this summer.
So you're proposing like another 25 million?
I mean, our goal every year is to be around 200 million total if the hatchery functions
Fine.
combined total. So some years it's a lot less. It just depends on like the health of the larval run and that sort of thing. You don't need a lot if it's gonna be really healthy and stick, so. But yeah, I'm hoping to do a lot more in Mattakit.
Great, awesome.
Anybody else? Natural resources report? Move on to old business. Review and update of shellfish regs. Particularly, as you can see on the agenda, Mr. Sherlin has brought a couple of things to our attention, and I'm glad of the reminder of the compensation. As you're aware, well aware, Tara, we had discussion about this in the past, and you know, relying on the NSA shouldn't be considered like a given, not that I'm saying that it is. But I think I also agree that it's time that somehow some type of compensation is considered, and I think it really requires more from JC. I'd like to see us start with giving a voucher again for extra box, or however that may work. It seems like that would be the simplest and easier for the town as far as cutting checks goes, so
Yeah, I think like all options are on the table. I know like as far as paying out money from the town, that seems like there's some obstacles, but I don't think it's impossible for, you know, if fishermen want to establish themselves as a contractor or vendor. I think it's something we can explore. I'm not opposed, I've never been opposed to the coupon thing. It's not something that I give out, but it's something that I would support, but I'm not the one handing them out. So there are other opinions involved in that, but I think it'd be great to put it back on the table for discussion and figure out a way to do that. We can also explore having a dedicated seed manager that's a seasonal employee or something like that. Someone that just works all winter long, you know, on a scallop boat. We could look at that. You know, we have seasonal wardens sometimes. Maybe we need some seasonal seed managers, you know, and that, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we did learn a lot last year when we were moving them. I wanted to get a lot more seed over to Mattakit, and I think this year, if we have a good seed set, I would probably focus on moving stuff to Mattakit first, because it seems like all the scalpers are in Nantucket Harbor and aren't excited to go around to Mattakit and use their gas and do all that. So I think like that, we would probably as a town focus on that. But like, as far as I'm concerned, everything's on the table for discussion this summer for figuring out compensation and where the bushel limit should be for the start of the season. I think we should get that done.
One of the problems with getting a specific contractor, the town probably has to go out to bid or RFP and let people bid on it as compared to just getting individuals.
Mhm.
That's why I think the voucher might work better.
Jim,
That's what happened in the past. The town basically didn't have money to do it, so the voucher thing came up as the compensation. It still seems like the money thing is an issue. I know most of the propagation money goes back to the hatchery now, which is great. But I think the next step needs to go forward with management of the seed once it's there. My suggestion would be to, if we're gonna do the coupon or vouchers again, would be do some kind of like shellfish tag like you have on, not the tags we use in the boxes, but like a lobster trap tag, where the tag goes physically on the box, and then you have to bring it in with the tag on it. And once you empty it, you have to cut the tag off. So if not, it can't be reused. I think that would be the best way to do it.
Okay.
That's my suggestion on that. But we need to come up with like a standard, I think, hour to dollar or hour to voucher number for compensation for the future. Yes, that there's some standard in the future going forward. We need to have all the fishermen do something. You know what you're gonna get or how you're gonna pay them. So it's not, seems like the few times we've had to do it or something's happened, it's been all over the board. And how it's been compensated for.
And would that include, the value of fuel? Wear and tear gear, I mean, in that hourly rate, I think it should be considered that, especially. Mentioning going from town to Mattocket, I mean, you're not working on the way out there, but you're using some fuel,
You
and
gotta
still
look at it.
taking time.
You gotta look at like a high labor rate problem.
Yeah.
When you got a boat, truck, trailer, person,
Yeah.
equipment. So it's something we need to look at.
Mr. Logan,
Yeah, if I may, did we also not have an issue before with moving product from harbor to harbor? Or did we clear that obstacle with the state?
We usually do pathology if we need to move stuff.
Because I thought that there was some restriction about moving product from one harbor to another.
There is, you have to have pathology done, but then they give you a window of time to do it. So,
The other thing
safe
was,
to say then it's like a case by case basis in a way.
yeah,
Or each time you'd want to move.
each season, we'd have to go through that.
the other thing was with the voucher program, and I know JC was a little bit hesitant to incorporate this again because of trying to monitor and manage it. With this, if it were to be considered again, my suggestion might be, yes, you get a voucher, but it has a time frame attached to it. So that you don't carry this tag through the season, and until somebody collects it, it's valid. So you move seed on whatever day. You get a tag, you need to get your extra box for the voucher within 2 weeks, and then if you don't, it's invalid. And that's a better way, in my opinion, to maybe manage this opportunity for some to carry that over beyond the one extra.
I guess my only question on that would be if you're moving the seed in April, you're gonna need the following year, right?
Well,
Or whatever it comes out to, and it's,
so then you move,
Yeah.
so then you get your next box the
Correct.
first week.
right, okay,
Yeah, so there's a time limit on the voucher itself. So if you move seed in April, Jim, fine, okay, I move seed on this day in April.
Right.
This voucher expires November 15th. Well, you get 2 weeks to get your extra.
and I can see different color tags for a year if you're gonna have it good for a year, maybe. Right, that's just, the same as the traffic tag, that's just what I think about.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Cash seems easier to manage.
Right?
I just look at, I'm sorry, just one thing that you talked about lowest bidder and stuff. So the town can establish, you don't need, there's no bidding, right? The town can establish a pay rate for different positions in the town. And if we were to come up and suggest that this is worth, in our esteemed opinion, $40 or whatever it is. This is what it should be worth. And the town can put that in and say that this position, if it's used, will pay up to this amount of money, or will pay this amount of money. We all vote on it at ATM all the time. We vote on all the amounts that can be paid for certain positions. And I'm just thinking, that's why I'd like to discuss this more, because I think it might be a lot easier to manage. Is to say, we open these positions up, here's the thing, it's gonna come out of somebody's budget, but this is what it pays. And when you say we have an opening, we need 2 votes or 3 votes or whatever, then those guys show up and they can get it, or they contact and say, yeah, I will do that, I'll work for that. So it just seems like it might be a lot easier to
Yeah.
manage than vouchers. So it's just not a discussion for tonight, but I think it's something we ought to think about all the
Mhm.
applications.
We'll keep that in mind or jot it down
Yeah,
to
yeah.
incorporate here. Thanks, Dave. Mr.
Yeah, I was
Anderson.
concerned about just a voucher for a box. Is it really enough? You're out there for a half a day with your boat. You would get with the gas and your labor rate.
That's the labor rate, that's what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
that's,
establishing,
so
yeah.
say you went and did move seed for 5 hours, maybe you'd get compensated with 4 or 5 vouchers.
Right.
Yeah,
Time you did, that's.
Okay,
whatever.
just didn't want to limit it to one potential,
No.
because you're out there all day. It's not fair.
Mr. Logan,
Having said that, to that comment, it's, it's incumbent upon us to perpetuate the fishery too. So, our compensation is one thing, maybe to recoup the cost of fuel and a few hours of labor, but it's also the future of our next year's whole industry.
Absolutely.
So,
That's a good reason.
Just wanted to make that.
It's a good reason to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
So. We Mr. Chairman. So Jim, do you think we would we'd figure what a day's pay would be scalping? Because you're missing half or all day, and then use that as a basis for compensation. And of course, that might change with the price, right? But
I mean, I think you'd probably do like an hour per. Set something an hour per voucher or something like that. Or something that's close, or an hour and a half, or whatever we come up with, or whatever. Where the discussion goes. Or something like that.
I think it can be comparable to jobs on land. I mean, you hire a landscaper to come over with a bobcat, how different is that than hiring a fisherman to come over with his boat? Same investment in equipment, and you know. Rates are extreme today, I'll say that. I was just offered $50 an hour to wash cars. So, wow, really? Okay. So, we have more time to discuss.
We do, but I don't think we're meeting very much this summer, and I think that the fall is gonna approach fast,
Right.
so. You know, it might be a good idea to. Hammer this out like through a work group or. I don't know.
Maybe we could all come up with. Stuff in our heads and jot it down in the next meeting, we can.
Mhm.
hash it
Well,
out.
we've certainly covered a lot of ground and we've brought up some things, I don't think all of us, expected to hear. Jim has brought up some wonderful, topics here and issues that, become easier to clarify. So, it seems like we're staying on top of it. We don't want to lag. We don't want to hold this up for you though, Tara. So, give us that deadline. Tell us when you want to have it submitted, when you want to have it complete.
Okay,
All right. We'll certainly be discussing this at our next meeting. How about the broken solid boxes, Jim?
hold on. Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
yes.
Didn't we at the last meeting decide that we're gonna meet once a month in the summer, July and August? And so the next, because July 2nd is too close to 4th of July, we weren't gonna have that meeting. We're gonna have a meeting on the July 16th.
Yeah.
So. Whatever deadline Tara comes up with, it's gonna be sooner than later, so maybe we should schedule a workshop meeting
Mhm.
before the 16th. But not on the 2nd, so we might have, if we can get the room, we might have a meeting a week before the meeting on the 16th. Or maybe the 16th would be a workshop meeting.
Why couldn't we have the second as a workshop meeting?
I know.
You won't be here, all right,
No, wait,
because
I
the
will be-
4th is on a Thursday.
I will be here.
Mhm. I mean, the 2nd's the Tuesday, the 4th is a Thursday, I mean, if it's a workshop,
Just one
or
topic.
basically, yeah, so.
What deadline were you thinking of, Tara?
I would just like to have something probably. By. The end of August, like a good idea of like. Where we're going with this. Cause I know how the town works and how.
Yeah.
We kick the can down the road and
Mhm.
it's gonna be here really quick.
Yeah, and so so this is getting rolled into the revision of the regulations, right?
It would, I mean, we would allow, yeah, as far as compensation.
But. And so. End of August, so that sometime in September, there'd be a select board meeting, which would be a public hearing where they would vote on it, hopefully.
And the regulations as well, yeah.
And one more thing, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Have you then prepped Libby and the select board that this is coming?
I personally have not, but
So you should probably say this is our timeline, what we're working on, so that we know that
okay,
that's what. Because then they could say, if we waited too late or whatever, they might say, oh, we're not having a meeting on the date that we need to have a meeting. And then it's. All of a sudden, it's, you know.
Okay.
First day of recreational and then a month away is first day of commercial.
Maybe I should,
Just saying so they know.
maybe like making up a timeline for how this is all gonna happen with some dates would be helpful.
You're saying you're gonna create that
I
timeline?
can do that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else on Shellfish regs for tonight?
Sure, you want me to talk about the broken box?
Yes,
Quick on this.
yes.
It's just the regulation for its broken box where you can get fined. I think I just like to see like a clear definition of what box need to be replaced. You just have a crack in the corner or in the handle, if that needs to be replaced. And that's finable, or if it's more of like the box is actually broken, like missing parts. I don't think we should have to replace the box, if it's just a little crack in it, they can fix the piece of wire or a zip tie or something.
Okay.
That's reasonable. They're not buying the boxes.
Wasting plastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's something we should hash out of what constitutes a box need to be replaced.
So maybe. Whenever I think of a broken box, I'm thinking of a box that's like,
I should have brought two in tonight, I meant to, but
well, the integrity of the
it's
sides,
just got, oh,
you know, the integrity of all four sides. Allows the box to swell.
yeah, if you have one, the corners are broken and the sides are both broken and everything, yes. Should be replaced, but if you have like one crack or something, you should have to replace your box.
Mr. Logan,
Yeah, this is definitely a sore subject, and I would prefer to not have it left up to the interpretation of the investigator to what is actually constituted broken or not within the parameters of the official box size. And again, I am definitely not one here to be like, yeah, if the box is broken, the box is broken. And I'm surprised I'm even saying this, but if we're gonna do this, we need to have somebody who's the investigator have complete and strict adherence to whatever you're going to propose. So to me, a box that's broken is broken, whether it's a crack at the handle or a crack at the corner. Get a new box, start over. We talked about this last meeting about providing an opportunity for us to buy new boxes. We have 100 in stock here. I'd rather go that way so that there's no confusion. Just an opinion.
Mr. Chairman,
well, unless it's spelled out. You know, one crack is okay, two is not. I mean, basically what we're looking for here. For the sake of the fishermen, is to have clarity and transparency on what it is. And if it's gonna be as cut and dry as you're proposing, then fine. But it's, you know, Jim's bringing it up, as I can see, simply for clarity, so there isn't any, you know, question at the dock while it's happening, Mr. Brace.
is it possible to have photos of examples of what is considered a broken box in the bylaw? But, I don't know. I mean, or something that's handed out to the scalpers. I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing ideas out.
The whole broken box thing really came up at one point where somebody had some real garbage boxes. To the point where the warden kept trying to get new ones, and the warden finally gave him boxes because he was so tired of looking at them. That's where this really all came from. But that was years ago now, but that's really where the whole broken boxes thing came from. Somebody basically abusing it, that we just had like garbage boxes. And then they continued on, but anyway,
No,
that's where it came from.
Mr. Logan.
There is a box in your right on.
Mhm.
Yeah, the one last year, the town provided boxes. 2006 or something.
well, we talked about.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we need to brace this point about having photographs about defining, you know, cracks and that will be. we tried this with the limit size of a box where there was a picture of a box of scallops posted on a post out in Mattakit from 3 different angles that was, you know, flat level, and there were different definitions, so it's under the guise of interpretation, and I want to eliminate that. I want to have a clear, we can do this if you want, yeah, you can do that, have a clear definition of what a cracked non-viable box is, but I'm gonna push to be like, if it's broken, start fresh, go get a new box.
So, Mr. Chairman, what you're saying is you don't want JC to apply broken box idea to one scalper and then change it to another scalper and say that what scallop, what he thought was broken on one guy is not broken on another guy, or whatever, just
Acceptable.
there's just one standard and that's it.
Correct.
I agree.
Unbroken box. Period.
I don't think any of us want to be here having a hearing about a broken box.
Right. Thanks, Scott. Okay. Have we exhausted this for the moment? Anything else on shellfish regs for tonight? The dinghy, proposed dinghy regulations at the town pier, this is still. We need Sheila for this, probably,
Yeah,
okay,
Has that been discussed at all?
I'm
No.
sorry,
Has that been discussed in the meeting? Okay.
It is at some point.
any comments, questions from the board? From the public? Conch harvesting,
So in the absence of Sheila, is there a second in command that maybe could show up? Well, to answer some questions.
Dave's pretty familiar with them, he helped her draft them. So. We still need her blessing. She's
Right.
got her own sources, she's gotta tell us what she really wants.
That could be problematic.
Dave took some changes back, well, yeah, we got a little bit of time on it.
but she has not presented them to us yet, right? And is she? Does anyone know what her status is? Is she able to get around? Is she still on the job?
I do not
I
know.
believe so.
I think we have to hold up until we get input, that's all there
Yeah.
is to it. Our
Yeah.
position is that we're asked to review, we're told these are coming to review,
Right,
they haven't shown up yet, that's all we can do.
and she asked us to wait until after, I think whatever it was, April 21st, and she was going on vacation. And then-
Right. Right,
So she came back and then,
so I think we just keep it on the agenda. And,
Well, or not, we'll try to reach,
Have to come back.
Yeah.
Submit it formally, actually, that would make 1%.
Yeah.
Sure.
we'll reach out to Sheila between now and the next meeting. There's nothing else for that. Do we have anything more to discuss on conch harvesting?
none of the players are here.
We just have this on there because we just simply were not sure if there was more to discuss.
No, I thought Tara was nodding her head yes last time, that you thought you had enough information to get something in the regs.
I think so. You guys will have a chance to review it.
Alright, but as far as switching up Mattakit to Nantucket Harbor this season,
I think
we're,
they decided that since it wasn't gonna happen in a timely way, to just keep it the way that it was.
okay. If there's nothing else with conch harvesting, the revised SHAB letter to the Nantucket Land Bank on commercial use of Petrol Landing. Dave, Mr. Bossy, thank you for revising this once again.
Total absence of commercial. It's simply for public use of this resource. For aquaculture. That's the new version. So this is where I think we need to get this to them.
I think it's well written and soft.
Right, it's kind of soft and squishy. It basically just asks for public access that's not signing up people's dinghies and living in town.
Mhm.
Yes. Transient public access.
I spoke for a short time with, is it Marion? That works at the land bank, or Miriam?
Marion,
Marion.
no,
And she seemed very privy of the idea that the two, that we and the Land Bank Commission have a joint meeting. She thought that was a great idea. We spoke for a short time at
This is a huge
Oyster.
thing to have this-
Yeah,
Have this happen.
it is, and she felt the same way. She said she actually lived in the Milton Rowan building for the last 2 years, and she kept her eye on the waterfront and the activity, and she realizes that Petrol Landing is one of the last
Yeah, yeah.
like open page kind of thing, to a point with limitations, but I think maybe just the last sentence stresses more that we actually request a
Instead of we
meeting.
would be happy to.
Yeah.
We request a meeting with the land. bank.
Yeah,
I agree.
to discuss further, yeah,
For further discussion.
yeah.
and maybe. Maybe we just. We request that we be put on their agenda.
Either way, but that's what they might
Yeah,
say.
we
They may
all
come back
go to their
and say,
meeting.
yeah, they might
Yeah.
come back and say, look, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you guys attend this meeting? We'll put you on the agenda. That'd be fine.
Depending upon how long their meetings are, what they expect, I mean, we always hate to exceed 2 hours, if it requires being a special meeting or.
Yeah.
Turning one of our meetings into a workshop with just them. Let's kind of leave the options open.
There's a lot of cost, but yeah, let's change that. We'd be happy to meet too. Would request to meet. We request to meet with the land bank for further discussion. Get that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we have Peter submit this.
No,
Sorry,
wait,
that change.
you wrote it.
Right,
Well, I'll make a
Well, the
motion, I'll make a
secretary has to
motion to
submit
have.
it. I mean, I just assumed the secretary had to submit it to.
Well, I'll submit it, but.
Yeah.
What you modified.
Oh, I'll make that change for you. Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'll send it to you. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll make the change that we just discussed and I'll send a copy out to everybody.
And I'll make the motion that then it's Peter sends it along.
Okay.
Okay, great.
yeah.
Oh, I'll second that.
So we taking a vote here, Mr. Anderson has made the motion that this letter be revised one more time, basically one word. That we request a meeting with the land bank. Motion's been seconded by Mr. Bossy for Mr. Brace to send this letter out. Any more discussion on this? So all in favor of sending this letter out as discussed, revised here, all in favor, Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Bossy,
Aye.
Mr. Sherlin, Mr. Brace,
All right,
chair votes aye as well.
Mr. Chairman. Will I be sending it to Jesse Bell?
With the request that it be disseminated to all members of the
Okay,
elected members of the board.
because I don't think it's my place to send it to the members.
No, you said it last time and I agree with you. Yeah, that I originally did, but with the request that would you please distribute this to the elected members of the board?
Okay.
Anything else on the land bank letter? Aquaculture lease. We'll continue discussion. Mr. Fitzgibbon is here with us this evening. I just recently sent via text a letter that Mr. Carlson must have sent to you, Mr. Fitzgibbon. Mr. Sherlin shared it with me about a half hour before the meeting. Both Mr. Sherlin and I, and maybe the rest of the board, you'll have to speak for yourselves. Not sure if a letter, from Mr. Carlson needs to, like this needs to go through us or not. Mr. Brace maybe can clarify that for us. The first concern, of course, is does Mr. Fitzgibbon have enough time to move his gear in the amount of time allotted? I, for one, would be concerned that you may not, and would, stump for you to have some more time to be able to do that. And Tara, if you have any knowledge on this, be glad to hear from you as well.
I just had, sorry, Andy. No, go ahead.
I tend to abstain from that part of the conversation just because of my conflict of interest. But if there's anything biologically that you want to know or ask questions about that part of it, I'm happy to chime in.
Well, we do know that we have been informed that Mr. Fitzgibbon can't sell any product from that site. If there's anything else biological that we ought to know about that you could add to, that's not a conflicting statement. We also understand that it's, this is a state requirement. So this pretty much, as much as I think we'd like to assist Mr. Fitzgibbon, we've got to go by the regulations that are here, and it seems there was some miscommunication along the way, not enough information possibly. And I think we're all sorry that Mr. Fitzgibbon's in the position he's in right now. And we worked long and hard on getting this lease transferred and seeing this acreage productive. And I think it's safe to say we feel Mr. Fitzgibbon is suited for this. But there's an investment, a large investment to be made to move to the deep water. And Mr. Fitzgibbon, have you researched any type of financing or granting or assistance in?
You mean asking for money?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I
And
can go further into my reason why, if you care to hear.
of course, would love to.
Well, as it stands, I don't see it possibly viable to make any reasonable living out of that scenario. Solely using that deep water space, especially if it's limited to the 4 acres, which is what I currently hold. So I would not invest another dime. Honestly, because that makes sense.
But Andy,
Mr.
Sorry.
Brace,
but wasn't it a part of the select board decision and the natural resources decision when the lease was transferred to Mr. Fitzgibbon that he would work 4 acres until he showed that he was doing it, and then he'd be given some more of the 10 acres? Wasn't that part of it? He was supposed to get the rest of it once he showed that he was doing it. Right? So if you had your full complement out there, would that then make it feasible? You did. I guess.
Not by my calculations.
Since you're now here, I mean, we had a big discussion at the last meeting, and it's unfortunate you weren't here, but that's whatever, but.
I had a lot of information ready to present to you guys. I really regret not being here.
Okay, I'm just not, I didn't mean to rehash that, but.
Yeah, I just, excuse my absence. I would like to present you guys more answers.
I mean, we heard everything from JC and from Tara and from Jeff. And most of us know that that area is an overwintering area and that it's not classified as an area that you can grow. So, and like Andy said, there's some miscommunication. So I just see. It doesn't seem like there's wiggle room, but there should be wiggle room for how much time you have to get the gear out based on what Jeff is saying in his letter. And July 1 is, you know,
It's only 26 days from when they.
right,
told
should
about
be a lot. Should be given more time, especially because in good faith, you work to take the lease over from Ted and you've been working it. So albeit not in the correct spot, but so.
Did we vote on anything last meeting regarding the lease sites? Or anything regarding
We voted-
agriculture?
No,
Leases.
we voted to support Jeff Carlson in saying that at this time, these are the regulations. And this is what, that's all we did. We didn't vote to change leases to change the status of these.
We voted to agree with them that it's
That it was-
subtitle area and it's not for,
It's
not
not,
for growing season.
Sarah?
I just sort of
Dave?
I just did a quick look for grants. Massachusetts agriculture grants. I mean. They come up everywhere from the state, now, I don't know about using federal money, but. There's grants, financial assistance programs for infrastructure. I mean, the farmers did this. When these guys started a sustainable farm, they, go out and get $50,000 at 1%. And they had to pay it back, it was a loan, it wasn't a grant, but it was practically free money to use for 5 years to get started, exactly that. And this is, there are apparently a lot of agricultural grants right now, I don't know, I know Tara probably gets involved in grants for different programs that she haven't done one, but I'm concerned that 4 acres won't make it, and it certainly makes sense to me. 10 acres I'm hearing won't make financial sense, but that's all there is 10 acres.
It's an 8 acre
Yeah,
deep water.
I just started 10, I was like 8 acres.
well, the other two is
Oh,
the winter
right,
oversight.
yeah. So so 8 acres isn't gonna make it, it's not a business to be in. If 8 acres is gonna make it, but it's expensive to get started in the business. I sure as hell be looking at state money. I really would, I would take a step back and look, see what's out there. To get the business going with low interest, and it certainly seems the state wants to do that. I mean, there's no question the state wants to do that. Whether that money is available in a timely manner for you is not something would have to look into.
Tara?
Yeah, I was just gonna say a few things that when I came here, I was in charge of developing the program and getting these areas approved and stuff, and when Matt and I got married, I had to step back from it because it was a conflict, but there is acreage available in Pulpus. I'm not sure if you know that.
Carlson told me that was proposed, it was projected to be closed because of pollution factors, and he was not gonna encourage me in that direction.
Yeah, it's also very soft bottom and probably too deep to do what you want to do. I think like getting into deep water culture is something that has been challenging for everybody up there, just not really anticipating what was involved and like how you can turn a profit. I know like personally it's been difficult, but I don't think it's impossible to have new areas approved for leases and going down that road. Sometimes it does take a little bit of time, but I think like there are shallow water leases that either on the west end or in Nantucket Harbor that could be established. One thing that I think needs to be checked on through the town is they did put a moratorium on approving new leases. And that was a while ago because we wanted to see how the existing leases developed and how they handled their best management practices, because we weren't sure because everybody was so new and we wanted to make sure that the public was going to accept that type of activity up in the harbor and make sure that we had it under control before it just opened up. And so I'm not sure if that was an indefinite moratorium or if it's something that needs to be lifted if we look into having new leases. But I just wanted to mention that there are some leases, and I think like if they're not going to be open and available because of water quality or because they're just not great for growing oysters, then maybe we should look at getting an additional amount of acreage approved for that purpose. I'm open.
I would say there's an area Madigan to do it.
What's that?
I would think there's an area Madigan to do a lease site.
I would think if you wanted to distinguish yourself as different, Mattakit would be a great site.
There's countless sites on it that would grow fantastic product.
What's that, Sean?
There's many, you could have countless site, you could have a site every 50 yards down every piece of coastline on the harbor.
I asked a question at the last meeting of Mr. Edwards. Of how many acres he was utilizing, and his answer was simply all of them. I'm led to believe he's working roughly 40 or 45 acres. Are you familiar with how many leases he has, how many people he's joined with, and what activity, if any, there is with Chuck Connors? And is he allowed to simply let Mr. Edwards use his acreage in a certain way that defines him as still being active? I'm just curious that, you know, a fledgling farmer not having enough acreage to make it viable and being up against an established farmer that has accumulated more than enough acreage, I would imagine, to be sustainable in a way that negatively affects a smaller farmer. I'm only throwing this out there and taking a guess. I don't know enough about it at all.
You're allowed to have 10 acres in your name on the state permit.
And 2 of those acres are a winter site.
2 of those acres are an overwinter site, correct,
Okay.
for the head of the harbor.
All right.
And there's partners up there, but people have the permits in their names.
Okay. Mr. Fitzgibbon, if you wish.
I've recently been in touch with Gabriel at the EMF office in state, and I've been asking a lot of questions concerning, you know, what, if any, options I have. And one thing's been very confirmed is that a farmer cannot hold or store any oysters on another farmer's site. So I don't know how they have their operation cut and working, but if they're using Chuck's site without Chuck being there, those aren't Chuck's oysters. That's a no. Big time. And I don't know how Mac and Simon divvy it up with their seed, their oysters, Mac's oysters, Simon's oysters, you know. That's their business, but if there were to be some, I don't know, investigation into where's the line of Mac's oysters and do they drift over onto Simon's lease, or how is it allowed that they can be utilizing Chuck's space for the last 2 years without Chuck being there? That's a question I'd like to, you know, maybe bring up to whoever may be up to enforcing.
Well, enforcement's coming from environmental police and our Shellfish Ward, correct? That's it. So, and of course, they're not here, you know, to jump into this conversation, but it certainly would be nice to have that conversation. So I don't like to have confusion in the mix with this. it needs to be set up in a fair way across the board, and I'd like to think that it is, but for some reason it doesn't sound like it is, but like I said, I don't know enough about it, and I have to rely on.
Second mention, just talking with Gabriel, I have been getting only the answers I've received are from him. I haven't really gotten any response from Dale Carlson in over 2 weeks of sending him emails, calls, going into the office. I have not heard a peep from him. So I'm taking what the state is giving me as the state law and what's actually being, allowed and what they will enforce. And he was very much he was very confused when I clued him into the letter that Carlson sent me. He said, Sean, I was under every impression that the resource department SHAP was pushing in every direction to open that site for your use. And on the state end, we have no problem with you using that as our survey for overwintering is the same survey as we would do for grow out. So we give you permission to do that. You don't even need to ask us, is what he is telling. Not only that, but
Permission to what?
he said he would, if the town was gonna ask the state if this is allowed, grow out for that space, he would defer to the select board. Or he said, it's fine by us. It's not up to me. We give you the green light. It's gonna be your decision, is what he's told me. So he was more or less shocked to hear that this has been shafted so abruptly. That was his, response to me.
I think Bob brought that up last meeting about opening it for everybody, basically. Again,
Who brought it up?
Bob DeCosta.
Yes,
He brought that up.
Yeah, my request wasn't for sole use either. It was obviously for all.
Yeah, for everybody. That was his.
Yeah, but there were also reservations by the people that opened that up for grow out. And now
Yes.
all those cages.
Yes, it
exposed
was.
to all seasons,
Yes, it was.
some season.
But it was, I'm just saying it was talked about.
Right, it was.
No.
But it would still, even though, Mr. Chairman,
yes.
even though the state said that to Mr. Fitzgibbons, the select board would still have to vote on it. They'd still have to sign off. The state may not have a problem with it, but it's still, the select board has to make that decision.
So excuse me. Can anyone in this room verify, is that actually a bylaw? Is that a local regulation? Is that, what defines that? Because that is still. yet
What
to
defines what?
The overwintering status. I mean, aside from the letter that I've gotten from Carlson, I haven't received any documentation labeling it as it is what it is. I would like to know. Is this a bylaw? Is
I
it
guess
a law? Is it a regulation? How,
It was voted on at the Board of Selectmen meeting. We had a copy of it at the last meeting. It was, I can't remember the date. It was like 2013 or 14. Where the Board of Selectmen voted that it was only for overwinter use. And the reason why it went through so quickly is because most people had 4 acres and they quickly realized that they couldn't overwinter because they lost all their oysters in the first year by sinking them before they had learned that you can, add boards and stuff like that. And so we needed to scramble and get an overwinter site, and the Army Corps of Engineers let us do a fast form for that, just because it was just for overwintering. And it was supposed to be subtitle only, and that's why it went through like a different process. And then the remaining 4 acres to round out the 10 came after that. But that was always intended to be overwinter. Because that's what was needed at that time.
so it's
Sarah, wasn't it also mentioned that the application for the overwintering is this big and the application for grow out is this big?
Yeah.
They're 2 totally different animals.
Mhm.
I think maybe the question he's asking, where is it written? It's not in this. Is that what you're looking for?
it was never presented to me from the day one. I mean, the
I
only
mean-
reason I set up there was because people were telling me to do so.
I don't know that all of the leases are called out specifically in the regulations. The aquaculture guidelines were added later after the fact too. And they're definitely not perfect, but on the lease agreements, and the approvals that went through, it should say what the use is allowed, and you have to. When you go through the aquaculture process, you have to have a production plan in place that tells exactly how much gear you're gonna have per acre, the mooring configuration, everything. And if that's different, then you need to come back and resubmit what you're doing.
Seems like, Jim,
Mhm.
seems like we need Jeff back here and we need clarification. I mean, Mr. Fitzgibbon said he was told, but do you have documentation? You have a letter to
No.
you telling you that, or was it just, because if it wasn't, it was just
It's
basically
hearsay.
hearsay?
Yeah.
So that sucks, but you know, something official that says, yes, put your gear there.
Well, when a federal agent comes to my site and investigates me multiple times over multiple years, that's all the documentation I need to see.
And you have that.
I mean, if they will deny inspecting my site for the past 2 years, then that's a whole another can of worms here.
Seems like we need Jeff here. I mean, and it also seems, sorry to hijack it, but
No, we,
it also seems like July 1st is too soon. And we need clarification.
I would like to fast forward the issue to that, because that's the current present
Can
issue.
you, let me finish.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna talk, please say, Mr. Chairman, or through you, Mr. Chairman. It's pretty informal here. We try and follow the way it is, because it does get big.
Excuse me.
And so, you know, sounds like we're talking about having a meeting on the second. But that's gonna be a workshop meeting, but maybe we can split it. I don't know.
well, you know, in my eyes, there are some unanswered questions here. And, you know, there needs to be, some type of relief for, what sounds like there's some miscommunication, could be considered hearsay. But, why would a guy go and set up, year round in a place that was winter over if he had been told it was, winter over only? Invest in gear that's shallow water when, he really would have to have deep water gear to survive, and, I hate to see this fledgling operation be dust in the wind. I want to see somehow, Mr. Fitzgibbon be able to continue and feel as though he can move forward in a viable manner. I think that's only fair. That's why we're doing this. That's why these leases were created. And I understand he may have, or has invested in gear that doesn't work deep water. And that in part is possibly because of some miscommunication. And I feel we need to work as diligently as we can and to help Mr. Fitzgibbon continue with his operation. Mr. Anderson.
I try to eliminate some of the questionable things. Do you have anything in writing from that person, the state you were talking about, or from the federal officer?
Concerning
Anything that he came and inspected your site, or what they saw, or the communication just said he wouldn't have a problem with the gentleman up in the state wouldn't have a problem approving that area? Anything in writing like that?
Gabriel's been included into email thread. I've been speaking with Carlson, also included in that thread is Sergeant Dave Wright and JC Johnson. I was under the impression they were communicating on all ends here. No, I don't have a lot of written clarification on any of these matters.
Well, as far as you being visited over the last 2 years and that giving you the feeling like and comfortable that what you're doing is fine, they've inspected me and they've left and haven't found you in any type of violation. At least, you know, remember what time of year that was. Certainly they have it logged and maybe you can work on.
There's multiple times.
But if you could get their log that this is when you were inspected. It's in their logbook, then at least you've got some solid information. to help you with your case. To move forward in some way.
I don't know if they keep a logbook like that.
I'm sorry?
They do.
I don't know what kind of records they keep as far as their, daily activities.
But you should you should organize everything you have that's written down. Whether it be an email or a report from someone from the state or some federal person. And have it in chronological order and have it organized. So that if you come to another meeting, hopefully you come to another meeting, you'll be able to. I have all this, you can show it to JC, you can show it to Jeff, can't just be. With respect, you can't just be, I was told this and I was told that.
Well, and I think he realizes that he needs to
Yeah.
take the next step, though. Let's just say you were visited by environmental police last June.
Yeah.
It was sometime in June.
We'll
Go
do
and go, so it was, if you know that it was in July, then ask him for that, and he should have it logged.
It's freedom of information.
And so then at least you can say, look, I was checked in July. When if it's an overwintering site, he's checking you last July and not telling you it's an overwintering site. That's an argument on your behalf. I would have no lawyer by any means, but that sounds like it's a little in your favor to at least back up your statement of you've never been sent the information that you needed to know that this was only an overwintering site. So I mean, you've stated that as well, that you feel like you didn't receive the information you needed and right from the get-go, and that you requested for it and still didn't receive it. For your sake, let's get this out there. And it doesn't sound real pretty, but we need to get it out there. I don't want to see you just drop the ball here, Sean. Because you feel you can't afford to move forward. Aside from the grants Mr. Bossy's looked up, I strongly feel if you came before the NSA, you might find something there as well. Can't guarantee it, but the NSA wants to see you survive as well. And they have grants available. It's all a matter of a vote of the board and a request from you. Mr. Logan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding comments Mr. Boston made previously about when some of the other attendees at the last meeting were speaking about putting up in the shallow water there, you said that there was some resistance to that. I think the resistance was speculated. I don't think we actually heard from the public. And I just want to make sure clear for the record that the resistance that you're speaking of was speculative and not actually administered by anybody from the public. If I'm mistaken.
However, it led to Jeff Carlson, I believe, saying that this is something we would all have to get together and discuss.
Mhm.
That to make sure that everybody's on board with it, okay with it. Yes, I would say there were perceived concerns. But it was also agreed that everybody should sit down in a room and discuss those concerns and say, you know what, they're really not concerns. But they shouldn't be concerns. If they all agree, they all agree. If they don't all agree, then Natural Resources has to make a decision. But yes, I perceived some concerns.
The concern I perceived, if I may, was the timeline. And it wasn't the visual obstruction for people's enjoyment of the harbor. It was more about where they actually were placed, and I think that was something that Jeff brought up. That was a valid concern, and I appreciate it. But again, it was this reference, I think, was speculative without further conversation.
Right, no, absolutely, there was to be further conversation if they were gonna head that way, right?
Thank you, Mr. Boss.
Sure, I'd like to ask Sean a question. So just reading through this letter you sent me, it says from the site, no oysters may be harvested from this area. It is not covered by active approvals. Are you not even allowed to move it to a deep water site?
I believe I am only supposed to move it to the deep water site.
I wasn't sure if they meant that.
And once it's at that deep water site, you can immediately,
Well, yeah,
Is that
the following
okay,
time,
just making sure it wasn't,
four hours later, yeah.
just making sure you weren't losing that product.
I'm losing a lot of product. I'm losing almost all my product.
as we speak, for what reason?
So
Those are two questions. You're losing it as we speak?
no, I mean, I'm trashing a lot of my product because I don't have anywhere to hold it. Basically, and I'm making the decision out of the 40 floating cages I have out that are usable, that is holding seed stock, which is like very tiny baby oysters, that is a more valuable investment for me to maintain than to try and shuttle what stock I have on the shoreline site into those floating cages and try to sell them this summer. So I'm sacrificing one or the other, basically. Now, if I could be given an extension to achieve this goal, which has been killing me the last 10 days working up there, dismantling everything as quickly as possible, I could get that done. Absolutely. I would be able to transfer my oysters from the beach site to the deep water, sell them weekly as the market demands, and they'd be gone. I would empty the site, it'd take me a little bit longer, but I would be doing it very effectively and I would not be dumping my product.
Tara, please.
Can I ask a question? Like, how much seed do you usually run through there?
My first purchase was in the first season, 2022, 300,000,
And how many cages did you have?
60 floating cages, and I started utilizing some of the dilapidated gear Ted had left. And now that was when I first started using the shoreline. So basically since day one, that was how I managed emptying his cages, was to float them in at high tide to the beach, wait for the low tide, go in and empty them. So I've been working on that beach since day one.
Do your cages have the 4 or the 6?
They have 4 bays.
Okay. So you need like, I mean, this is like one of the thing on the production plans that we look at is like, if you get 100,000 seed, you need 125 cages for your adult oysters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I expect I could,
so 300,000 is a lot of seed to like spread out.
yes, it is.
What would you think for a timeline would be reasonable if you move your product?
Thank you, Dave.
If I could be given the month of July when the market is high, that would be incredibly helpful.
So you think August 1st would be more?
I mean, I'd go for September 1st, get through the summer. But I know I've made a great effort in the last week to remove more than half the gear that's up there. There's 140 cages that I've dragged to the shoreline, and there's really only 30 left. However, they're the largest and heaviest of the cages, holding the most oysters. So that's still about half my product is sitting there. So I took today off because I was overwhelmed yesterday. And am looking in other avenues. I'm asking, and I don't know if you guys can help me with this or who I should approach for an extension on this project, but that's basically the only thing I can go for at this point. I mean, I understand I'm outside my boundaries, I'm not within the zone, I get that, I gotta move, I'm in the wrong, okay? But I'm just trying to land on my feet, not literally have wasted 3 years of work and over $100,000 of product that I would have sold this summer.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please. Mr.
so if
Ray.
you were, let's just say hypothetically, you were to get an extension to September 1. And you're able to shift everything and sell everything. Or basically move to deep water. Would that help you financially to keep going?
That was in my plan, was to take my earnings this summer and reinvest as they opened up the next 4 acre square to me and fill it with floating gear.
Right, so he just said it right there. He knows that that was the plan, that once he proved himself, he'd get he'd get the rest of the acreage. So, I mean, I think we should give him an extension to September 1 and then have another meeting that clarifies everything, you know. But in the meantime, you know, get him the extension to September 1. And in the meantime, in the intervening weeks and months, we get clarification on everything from Jeff. What do you guys think?
Mr. Sherlin,
I was gonna recommend that we ask Jeff to give him an extension.
turn that into a motion.
A motion that we recommend to Jeff that we give Sean Fitzgibbon an extension to move his oysters. Just them for sure.
I'd second that.
Any more discussion?
And I would just add, that, or maybe you just modify your motion that we endeavor to get Jeff here and get answers to all the questions that happened in the meeting. And of course, I'll be doing the minutes, so you'll be able to refer to the minutes, but you know, so that we're all understanding about the possibility of other leases that Tara talked about and the possibility of maybe going to Matticat. Maybe you don't want to do that, but so that we have all that. So if something else arises,
And I would like to see the regulations on the agricultural leases. I've never seen it.
Right.
Something I'd like to look at, so I know
Mhm.
more about it,
Well,
after the session.
we certainly afforded a lot of time and extensions, and the select board did the same thing with Mr. Lambrecht, and that was on a downward slope for this lease, and I'd like to think that this is supposed to be the upward slope on this lease. So if there's no more discussion on this motion to request of Mr. Carlson to extend the time period for Mr. Fitzgibbon to clear his shallow water site by up till September 1st, and to request some more discussion with Mr. Carlson with the board on this. Is what you're asking, Mr. Brace?
yes.
That motion's been made by Mr. Sherlin and seconded by Mr. Anderson. Any more discussion on this motion? From anybody? All in favor, Mr. Sherlin?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Brace?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Anything more to discuss on the aquaculture lease? Sean, is there anything else you would like to get off your chest? While you're here, I realize it's, in a way, it's after effect, but it's kind of not, because this is ongoing and you know, it's, I believe there are some avenues here that, you know, you can come out with a positive feeling and stop beating yourself up. And I know this is a huge stumbling block for you, but I'd like to think there can be a light at the end of this tunnel for you, so. And I think, you know, you can get somewhere with the state. I don't think the select board is gonna be in a position to supersede what the state feels is okay. I don't think they normally do that, and you know, and I don't think NRD should either, so you know, it's the state that tests the bottom, if I'm correct, not NRD. So and if you find, you know, more dead bottom out there or something, I mean, get out there and search, and you know, Tara, is there a spot in Matticat that you may already have in mind that appears to be dead bottom, that may also be shallow area?
Usually how it works is that the person interested in the lease does the legwork on scouting out the sites. I mean, there's criteria on the state website, how many shellfish you're allowed per square meter. I think it's 1. And so you do the initial kind of scouting, surveying yourself before we get you guys and the Board of Selectmen to request the state to do a formal survey. So it has to go through the town first.
I don't want to drag this out, but you know, another spot I think of, I don't know how the eelgrass transplant is going. It seems like a small square in Fifth Bend that the land council's latest eelgrass transplant. In seeing that aerial photo of that area, it seems like it's a vast area of nothing but granular beach sand on the bottom. Which in my eyes would simply be considered dead unless the eelgrass, I've also heard, but I hate to say that, but you know, the divers involved felt that it was not doing so well. But of course, we have to give that time, but I'm just curious, it's a lot closer to home to where you are now, if there's acreage to still be found in shallow water in the upper harbor. You know, I like the sound of you creating a product that may be different than others, that creates a variety, that keeps people interested in this. If everybody was selling the same Firestone tire, we'd all be running Firestones, right? I mean, so I think you know, and that there's hope here, Sean. So anything else you'd like to?
No, I mean, I want to obviously be involved in the island and its culture and all things, you know, that are why I love living here, growing up here, and I don't think it's impossible, obviously, to make it work in the deep water site. It's just, it's gonna take a large amount of, you know, time and infrastructure investing into like a three-dimensional system. So this is, yeah, it's a major setback, but you know, setting up 3 years on a shallow site, and now I have to dismantle, start over, redirect, rebuild gear, bigger boat, a barge. It's, you know, it's a lot. That's not impossible. You know, I'm not gonna throw in the towel necessarily. I still think the acreage is very valuable. You know, I mean, people have offered to buy it for a lot more money than I bought it for, just for the purposes of looking out there at Pocomo Mansion and saying, oh, that's my oyster grant out there. So, you know, there's options as well. Don't have to grow oysters. But I appreciate you guys' help and support. You know, like I said, I'm not trying to point any fingers at anybody or cry, oh, I was told this and why me. I just am trying to do things properly. And that's it. I never was up there trying to do something, get away with it. I only ever set up because I thought I knew I was in the visible public eye. Why would I try something shady? It's not even a question.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brace.
So I know you're straight out just from listening to you. But the next time we have a meeting, make sure that that's a meeting you come to. Because you would have helped yourself a lot if you were at the last meeting, and I understand why you weren't here, but you know, these meetings, when you call each of us to talk about your situation, we're all assuming that you're gonna be at the meeting, and I think that we told you when it was and where it was, and you know, since the subject matter is you should be here. And I'm not trying to crap on you, I'm just saying,
Okay.
you can hear what we're saying, we're trying to help you. But if you're not here, that's like Jeff Carlson not being here. We can't ask him because he's not here. And if you're not here, we can't help you as much as when you're here. So anyway.
I spent 3 days writing business plans, explaining everything, every step of my farm production, my plans, my histories, accounts. I had a whole package of information to give you guys. So I was very embarrassed to not be here, honestly. Just for the record.
Thank you, Sean.
Appreciate that.
I know someone I'm sure did mention your guys scheduling meet on Tuesdays. I just, like I said, I've been very overwhelmed and I think I missed that detail. And I was really surprised when you messaged me and were like, hey, where are you?
And the meeting was already in effect, I know. I felt bad myself for not sending you a reminder a half hour at least before the meeting,
I
but,
just, I don't expect it to any
Well-
else's responsibility. I just was surprised that Carlson hasn't responded to me in over 2 weeks or. Hey, Sean, by the way, everything we talked about, you getting a nice pack of information together. It's, by the way, that meeting's it's Tuesday. You should probably be there and be ready. So I was a little shocked by that.
all right, anything else?
So, yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
So we're
Steve.
taking the vote, so then, does that mean you're gonna call Jeff and tell him this, or does that mean
I will.
Tara's gonna tell him that we're requesting this, or do we send him a letter saying this, or how does it work that he becomes informed?
I'm happy to inform him. He'll probably watch the meeting as he
Okay,
usually does, so
all right,
he'll know.
just making sure that it goes all the way to the top.
Is Concom this week? Thursday,
Next week,
next week?
27th.
I would ask if Jeff would resend the letter stating that if he does agree, it is to September 1st.
Thank you, Scott.
So this is clarified from the person who wrote the original letter, that it's cleared up in his mind for that extension, rather than us just voting. That we agree to do it, but Jeff needs to send a letter.
Yeah, it gives them documentation. One more thing.
Anything else on aquaculture lease? Health of the harbors, pollutants and microplastics.
I'm going to need a lot more research because it's a complex topic. But one statistic out there is like by 2050, there will be more metric tons of plastic in the ocean than there are fish. So, I mean, well, as you look at coastal resilience and rising tides, I'm kind of looking at this as it's not today, it's not tomorrow, it's an ongoing process. Again, we may have to educate the public about put stuff in the landfill. Don't just throw it out, or be careful when you're out on your boat or walking on the beach. I took on the South Shore, I walked about a quarter mile on Sunday. And I had 2 mesh bags filled with plastics, microplastics, stuff. Within that short distance, I'd walked the day before, I go with the bull with Matticat from like the inlet going out to Eel Point. I probably had another full bag of stuff that I take.
In the harbor, wow.
Well, up on the,
Yeah.
on the shore, in the water,
Mhm.
and just some of it's fishing gear. But some of it's just problematic people. So, and I just would like to keep it focused, and I'm gonna do more research,
Gotcha.
look for more facts. On it, because the other discerning thing is, it appears that plastics bond with other chemicals. So as some of the byproducts that are in the water from other pollutants, they'll attach to the plastics. And then what they do is they start growing or creating other environment that's negative, especially for bottom feeders.
Wow,
And that's why it's, I mean, the more I read, the more overwhelmed I get with the topic, but it's one of those things that somebody doesn't fight the cause. Or at least try to keep it up in the public's eye.
Thank you.
yes, absolutely, thank you, and you sent something out related. So thank you for that as well. What discourages me, and have you come across any of this information that, what portions of what we may bring to a landfill that we think we're putting in the correct bin to be recycled are basically an unsaleable product because we've not created a clean product.
Well, I know for a fact, that trying to stop taking our recyclables because it exceeded a 4% contamination rate.
Exactly,
The number one source for manufacturing in the world is rejecting our product.
yes,
So some,
Yeah.
again, some of it's education, you don't throw in a peanut butter jar that's gonna get.
Still half full of peanut butter.
That's,
yeah.
it's a vicious cycle of what's. even-
Well, and then there's mixed recyclables as well. People it's got their tin cans in with their plastics and it's you know, that's contamination as well, more easily separated, but what I'm getting, I want to get to the ultimate end of that is, so are these contaminated plastics being shipped overseas and dumped into the ocean by other countries? Are they ending up in an inland landfill, a combination of both? I mean, I've heard of, you know, rail cars going to the largest landfill in the United States in Ohio, and that's where all of our construction demolition goes. Lately, they haven't been able to handle the stream at the landfill, so they've instructed people to put their recyclables in non-recyclable, non-compostable, so that it doesn't end up in the composter, because then you end up with these residuals that we have to bury here in a lined cell. It's a very complicated process out there, and it really kind of shouldn't have to be. We mess it up for them by throwing away a mustard bottle that still has mustard in it,
Something I
and
said contaminants, I don't mean contaminants of the product itself, piece of plastic or glass or tin. What happens is the chemical reaction, especially in salt water, seems to like want to take whatever oil or other chemical that's out there, and it attaches itself. There's almost like a growth mechanism, a petri dish for this other new product, whatever it is. It very depends if it's oil or fuel in the water, or somebody throws another product out there, and even making the plastic. Yeah, as it degrades, it like off gases things.
creates mystery
Nope.
stuff. Great. Thank
My
you.
goal is to let the general public
Yeah.
listen to some of our meetings and maybe dig a little bit more, but as we were talking
Well,
about kids out of the news. today,
And we need to add this to our outreach program, and because it just becomes more interesting all the time, doesn't it? Thanks, Scott. Anybody else want to add to the discussion on pollutants and microplastics? Mr. Logan,
Just comment, thank you, Janice, for all that research, and it's fantastic and unnerving at the same time. But I
Yes.
think, like Mr. Lowell said, add it to the outreach program so that the kids that are coming up today think twice about just ditching something. And let them realize that you are now creating a situation that a new environment is creating, is becoming. And we don't have a way to manage it or suppress it. And we don't know what the eventual outcome
exactly.
might be.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be too late because I won't be around, but.
Well, I get it. I mean, no, but yes, no, thank you for that research, and enlightening to me to hear this, that you know, there's an amalgamation that's happening that's creating a new
Mystery jelly,
byproduct
yeah.
that we don't even know what the outcome is gonna be eventually 100 years from now. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, John.
Andy,
Yes, Mr.
Mr.
Brady.
Logan,
Yes.
you're a potential SHAB candidate. You're coming to the meetings a lot, you have a lot of knowledge, you know, you might think about it next year, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Price, for that. Take it into that.
Well, I'll butt in here quickly on that subject. There's been actually a couple of resignations from the board of directors on the Shellfish Association. I'd like to see him become nominated for a seat on that board. I just thought I'd throw that out there for anybody listening that if you'd like to be nominated to the board of directors of the Nantucket Shellfish Association, as possibly a couple of seats have opened up. Also, it's my understanding that the annual meeting of the Nantucket Shellfish Association that was scheduled for June 26th is now canceled. New business blue crab trapping. Mr. Dredd sent a email about this to me, better than a month ago. I put it on the agenda. I reached out to Mr. Dredd, have not heard back.
I saw him on Saturday and reminded him it was on the agenda.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. You know, And he had something to say about, I guess trapping is not allowed for blue crab.
It's not allowed recreationally unless you're tending the pot, and there's a list of like what type of gear you're allowed to use.
Okay.
It's like 3 different.
Well, I don't want to get into it tonight. He's not here and, we'll have it on the agenda next meeting. Which our next meeting is. Based on here, we have July 16th.
But we were talking about a possible workshop meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
And do we want to make a decision on a workshop tonight?
I think since Tara's gonna come up with a.
Is the beginning of July or the beginning of August better, or sometime near the end of July, if we can get a meeting room that is not one of our.
She wants everything done by the end of August,
Mhm.
so. We should meet
Mhm.
and then we can meet here because that's when we're supposed to meet, so we have to try and track down a place.
Okay,
As long as it's not this hot.
so shall we schedule July 2nd tentatively, for a workshop meeting for regs? Are
Yeah.
you available, Tara?
I am.
Okay.
So you and I.
I mean,
will have
it's,
to talk.
it's certainly excusable being close to a summer holiday, so,
It doesn't matter in the summer.
okay,
holidays.
all right.
They're all the same days.
Everything's all.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so Andy, I'm just gonna post that,
Okay,
since we don't need to talk about it.
okay. That it's a workshop for regs only.
Tara, would you resend again?
No.
I will.
Nothing about oyster lease,
Right. The Shellfish
Can we-
regulations.
but what if we need to have a discussion with Mr. Carlson about Mr. Fitzgibbon's lease?
Well, I mean, it's 2 weeks. So if
I mean, why don't
we would just
just,
wait till Tara tells him, and then if he says he wants to come and do that on the second, since
Okay.
that'll be the closest to the first,
okay,
so.
anything anybody wants to add? To our next meeting's agenda, which would be, when's our August meeting? Do we know yet? That's all right. So the 16th will be a regular meeting. Our next regular meeting will be the 16th,
It'll be August 6th,
August 6th.
and August
After that.
20th,
All right.
well, August 6th, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Logan.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else to discuss tonight, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's made by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Sherlin to adjourn tonight's meeting. All in favor, Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Sherlin, Mr. Brace.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you. Everyone.
I was gonna ask you about that.
It's sitting in my. I'd like to get it out.
You mentioned that the other day.
Too bad that air conditioner is so loud.
Doesn't work.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't work.
Oh, it
Yeah.
doesn't?
Well, she's there.
Too hot in here.
Yeah, it is.
Jim, you back for good?
Yep.
Heard.
The last full-time trip.
Heard a rumor that,
11
did you
years.
get engaged?